call, please?
We've got to do the pledge first.
We're going to actually do the Pledge of Allegiance first, and also this evening, we're going to do the pledge to the state flag as well.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge allegiance to the flag of Michigan and to the state for which it stands, two beautiful peninsulas united by a bridge of steel, where equal opportunity and justice to all is our ideal.
Okay, CNA, now if we could have the roll call, please.
Councilmember Shippers.
Here.
Pullman. Here. Stevens.
Here.
Melama.
Here.
Mayor Philpott.
Here. Okay, at this time, we have the approval of the agenda, and we need to have a motion to approve the agenda as amended to add minutes of a closed session from April 7th. And if you'll remember, we will go ahead and read through those minutes in silence. And then if there are no questions, we will ask for a motion to approve.
The winner is.
Way back.
Yeah, I don't remember those.
Too much.
Mayor, if I may just briefly interrupt, we still require a motion to officially amend the agenda to include the minutes.
Okay, absolutely. So, first of all, could we have a motion to amend the minutes? Or the agenda to add those minutes?
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda, or to approve the agenda Is that right?
With an amendment.
With an amendment to add minutes from the closed session meeting held on April 7th, 2014.
Support.
Sandy, could we have a roll, please?
Councilmember Spelman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Melama.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes?
Mayor Folkins.
Yes. Motion carries.
So now we go to public comment, right?
No, we have to approve the,
There's a
That's after.
consent agenda.
oh, I am so sorry. We jumped ahead.
Unless, would this be the time that if you had a concern with the things to,
No.
Nope.
Nope.
Nope. We will go ahead and open public comments at this time. And the first public comment has to do with anything that is on the agenda this evening. And when you come up, if you would please provide your name and address. It's very helpful to Sandy. And limit your comments to 3 minutes. There's no one at this time, then we'll close public comment and move on to the approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Support?
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Melama.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes?
Spelman.
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes. Motion carries. And
Do we need these back now?
we do need to hand these back, yeah. And this evening, we have a proclamation that we are going to be presenting to recognize 100 years of the Wexford County MSU Extension Services. So, would you like to step out?
I would. I remove my hat as a council member.
Yes.
And I'd like to ask one of my staff members to come up here and my council member to come up here, if that's okay.
And is it all right if I just use the microphone right here? Would you guys be okay with that, or?
Sure. Okay. Where do you want us?
Right here in front of me. That'd be great, where people can see you. And so what's your name?
I'm Sarah.
Hi, Sarah and Mike, right? Okay. So, the proclamation commemorating 100 years of Cooperative Extension, a division of Michigan State University. Whereas the acts of Congress on May 8th and June 30th, 1914 solidified the development of a nationwide cooperative extension program through the Smith-Lever Act in order to aid in diffusing among the people of the United States useful and practical information on subjects related to agriculture and home economics. And whereas extension services are provided through our country's land-grant universities, and whereas Michigan State University, then known as Michigan Agricultural College, was the first land-grant university in the United States. And whereas the Wexford County Extension Program began through the direction of its first county agricultural agent, James F. Zimmer, in October 1914 through a cooperative agreement with the local Farm Bureau. And whereas the first county 4-H youth agent served Wexford County in 1918, and the first county home economist served Wexford County in 1949. And whereas through the years, Michigan State University Extension has held true to its mission to help people improve their lives through an educational process that applies knowledge to critical issues, needs, and opportunities, while adapting to changing times and adopting new technologies. And whereas Michigan State University Extension Services continue to bring the research of the university to the community, and its programs include 4-H, agriculture, family nutrition, children and youth education, lawn and garden information, food safety, and programs directed at Michigan's natural resources. And whereas Michigan State University Extension has provided a range of important educational and technical assistance services to the City of Cadillac and city staff, including, but not limited to, support on matters of Lake Cadillac shoreline restoration, aquatic invasive species, urban gardening, the raising of fowl in urban settings, establishing and administering local farm markets, facilitation of public meetings, community placemaking, city planning and zoning, fostering economic development in a global economy, using geographic information systems for managing city development, use of local assets to promote tourism, and methods for promoting intergovernmental cooperation. And whereas 2014 marks 100 years of collaboration between the federal government, the state of Michigan, Wexford County, and the Extension Office of Michigan State University. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Carla J. Filkins, Mayor of the City of Cadillac, together with the entire City Council, express the community's deep appreciation for the efforts of the Extension Office in its service to the citizens of the city, presented on this second day of June 2014. Did you want to say anything?
I just wanted to say that Sarah is one of our children and youth educators, and she's been with us for 7 years now. And we have, I think, 8 or 9 staff in the office here in the Western County building. And Mike serves as the chair of our Extension Council for 7 counties. I'm the district coordinator for MSU Extension. I was the county extension director, and it's a pleasure to have an office in this community and to serve this community for 100 years.
Now we'll do communications, Sandy.
Yes, the first one is actually a revision to the Back to the Bricks road closures that we had done earlier. Basically, they've requested to extend it 2 hours, opening at 11 and closing down at 7. And they're also asking for an additional street closure on Harris from Mitchell to Shelby to allow for the parking of more vehicles.
It's growing.
I actually talked to Joy by chance today,
Yeah.
and she mentioned that they've had quite a few reservations, and it's probably going to be quite a few more than last year.
Good. Okay. So do we have a motion to approve that?
I'll make
I don't know.
a,
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Was there anybody here from Back to the Bricks? Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
I make a motion that we approve the request by Joy Van Dree for the street closure, adding the East Harris from Mitchell to Shelby on June 8th from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then also that's going to be adding 2 extra hours that was previously approved with the street closures for Back to the Bricks.
Support.
Sandy, roll call, please.
Councilmember Malama?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Spolner?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Filkins?
Yes. Motion carries.
The second request is from the Cadillac Arts Council to display a banner from July 14th to July 21st and to approve the closure of Lake Street from Harris to Cass on July 18th through the 20th from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. for their Festival of the Arts.
I'll make a motion. Is anybody here from the Arts Council first? Okay, then I'll make a motion to display a banner from July 14th through July 21st, 2014, and to approve the closure of Lake Street from Harris to Cass on July 18th through the 20th from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. for the Festival of the Arts.
Sandy, roll, please.
Councilmember Shippers?
Yes.
Spelman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Melama.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes. Motion carries.
Next request is from the Royal Order of the Moose for a street closure on Lake Street from Harris to Cass on July 27th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. for a senior citizen picnic.
Is anyone here from the Moose? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the request to close Lake Street from Harris Street to Cass Street on July 27, 2014, for the hours of 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. for a senior citizen picnic.
Support.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Spelman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Melama.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes. Motion carries. And at this time, we'll have the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. The first item under the report is an update regarding building inspectional services. It's just a brief history. Approximately 3 years ago, with State of Michigan approval from the Bureau of Construction Code, the city essentially conveyed its building inspection related planning reviews and electrical inspection responsibilities all to the Wexford County Building Department. We did this due to fiduciary reasons. At the same time, we also went through a layoff process as well. Recently, however, and due really to some anticipated increases in commercial construction activity, along with the desire to provide a greater level of customer service, it's essentially prompted us to re-examine our role in providing this type of service. We do have a request for proposals actually out publicly right now, trying to ascertain where the marketplace is. We believe there might be an opportunity where we can take control again of these types of services under an arrangement with a firm or some other type of company that would do it on a fee-based, sort of on-demand-based system. I don't know that yet, but that's the information that we're seeking to get, and certainly we'll share that with the City Council along with a recommendation at that point in time. As a part of that, we would need to, assuming that we move forward and get back into the game, if you will, we will need to amend at least a couple of sections of our code to allow us to do this, similar to how we had to amend a couple of our sections of our code previously when we relinquished the authority. The city attorney is looking into whether or not we still require approval from the State of Michigan Bureau of Construction Code approval, which is what was required before. I don't know if there is a chicken and an egg type situation right now where I need that approval before we can move forward, but presumably if that approval is required, we would want to make sure that we hit that step and then amend our code and then offer a contract in that hierarchy. But I don't know, Mike, do you have anything you wanted to add to that? Did you get any information since we last?
No, Michael Summers with the Bureau of Construction Codes will be back in his office tomorrow. There's only an issue with respect to the timing of it and whether it has to go through an application for approval through the state or whether once the city adopts an ordinance, assuming the responsibility, whether it's effective at that time. So we just want to resolve that. You will have to amend your code, putting back in there the responsibility for enforcing the building code, so we can prepare those amendments as well. But I think that those amendments we could prepare simultaneously with that application so that they only become effective if and when you get approval from the state.
How long would you anticipate approval from the state coming?
I don't think it takes very long, so I think it would be fairly quickly. But I'll know more tomorrow when he's back in the office.
I understand what our current arrangement is right now. Is there some sort of an agreement, Marcus, that we're in, that there's a time there's a clause we have to get out of or anything?
No, there is not.
Okay, thank you.
I will, I guess, put myself in this position. I've had several people approach me with our current arrangement problems that have cropped up, so I am very much enthused in going back to our contracting out this service to a contractor and have it under the city. There has been some issues that have cropped up, and I'll be pleased to see what comes in.
The proposals are coming in on June 20th. They're available either at City Hall. We can print off a copy should somebody actually walk in. Additionally, they are available at the Michigan Intergovernmental Trade Network website, which is what we use when we post all of our requests for proposals. And their website is simply www.mitn.info.
Thank you.
You said June 20th?
Yep. Okay. Sandy, could you? The next item is an update with respect to the Michigan Department of Transportation park property, otherwise known as the Keith McKellop Walkway. It's been discussed off and on over the last month and a half with respect to the disposition of the property. There is a series of slides that we're going to run through that tries to outline the timeline of when conversations originally started with the city, actually back in the 80s up to where we are today. Jerry, if you could hit that clicker. And I believe you mentioned it's updated to reflect the latest communication as well, right?
That's correct. 2 hours worth.
2 hours worth? Yeah.
I'm kidding. Okay. So what I want to do is, now I have to buy donuts. What I want to do is essentially go back in history and then bring you up to date. And I need you to recognize right from the get-go here that neither myself nor most of these folks were around when this project started. So some of what I'm going to tell you is I'm assuming, which I know you shouldn't do sometimes, but nonetheless, as you'll see as we go through here, and we'll see how this works. Is it going to work? I better turn it on. Here we go. Huh. Not going to work. Can you just hit them for me, please, Andy? Okay, I've got 2 slides that show the location of what we're dealing with. You can see the little Jeff's green pointer here. But essentially, City Hall is right there. Right there. That is the office right there of the Great Lakes Central Railroad. And there's the railroad track. And then the pathway that we're talking about, again, runs right along the lake, basically between Harris and essentially Pine. Go ahead, if you would. Just another shot of the pathway in yellow. That's the segment that we're talking about. Again, on the south, basically it's Harris Street, and if you go north, almost up to Chestnut, really, or Pine. So go ahead, please. Thank you. Just a few shots. I think you're all familiar with the pathway. Took these the other day. It was a beautiful summer day, and so I went out and took a few. This one, the lake would be to our left, so to speak. There's the railroad, the active railroad track, and then you can see in the distance on the right the Great Lakes Central Railroad offices that are currently in use, and the Chamber of Commerce and so forth are across the street. Okay, there's the Great Lakes Central Railroad facility, or the office facility that is in use by the railroad. There's a spur, by the way, that leads to this. I don't think I've hardly ever seen it used, but there is a spur. Okay. I know you can't read this, but essentially what I found was when I went back, on August 6, 1984, the Michigan Department of Transportation and the city had some discussion on essentially creating a park, a pathway park along the lake. And so the Michigan Department of Transportation asked the City Council to approve an MDOT resolution. And that resolution was approved by Council, again, on August 6, 1984. And essentially, this was required by MDOT in order for the city to obtain a construction permit for constructing the pathway on MDOT's right-of-way. Go ahead. Again, I can read this real quickly. Again, August 30th, 1984, the MDOT correspondence that we find and the various project documentation basically says we confirm the right for you, city, to enter the MDOT property for purposes of developing the area for park and recreational purposes, and to enter into a lease or easement with MDOT for the property. And that was prepared by the gentleman who was J. Charles Brown. He was with the MDOT right-of-way division. And it was accepted on 9/10/1984. It was signed by Robert Hamilton, a former city manager of the city. Go ahead. I'm not going to talk much about this, but there was a pile of documentation that the city had to submit. The city actually did a drawing, again, which I know is somewhat difficult to see, showing the shoreline on the left all the way up to the railroad track, basically giving MDOT an indication of what it is we're going to be doing with this property. Okay. The MDOT correspondence that came to the city did not indicate who was responsible for preparing that lease or that easement agreement that was referenced. And this is where I'm going to conjecture a little bit, okay? And that is that if you've dealt with state agencies, typically or federal agencies, typically they are the ones that provide kind of what I call the standard document, to the community, because they work with a host of many communities. So normally it's not the community that has to put this together. It's MDOT that says, here, this is the agreement we want you to sign. Obviously, you can tweak it somewhat, so to speak, assuming you both agree. But we weren't able to find any sort of instrument, nothing that says that a lease or an easement agreement was ever prepared. And to my understanding, nor can MDOT. So, okay. In the meantime, 27 years go by, okay? And I'm not sure what totally happened in those 27 years, but I just got older. But the path was constructed. The original participants, most of them are no longer with the city, so kind of difficult to talk to them. And in all that time, apparently there were no issues or concerns raised by MDOT, the property owner. And I'm assuming not the city as well. So we have a long period of time when this pathway is there, it's being used, and, okay, go ahead. In July of 2011, it's my understanding, and Marcus, feel free to add to this, but we had heard like a rumor, so to speak, that the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, who doesn't own this land, but they're working on a project in the Clare area. And they're working on a pathway, a non-motorized pathway project. And there's a portion of that, a portion of that proposed pathway runs through a stretch of land that is owned by the Great Lakes Central Railroad, who just happens to be the company that is under agreement with the state of Michigan to operate the railroad that goes here through Cadillac. And as you, again, are aware, the Great Lakes Central Railroad, they use, particularly that MDOT office that I showed you, in addition to the tracks, they use it for office facilities and related operations, and they want to continue, obviously, to do so. Well, the DNR said, we've got that railroad company owns a piece of property in Clare that we would like to get. MDOT owns a piece of property in Cadillac that the Great Lakes Central Railroad would like to have, well, at least we think so. Why don't we work a deal? MDOT, you give us the property, and then we'll turn around and we'll work a deal, develop a transaction or do a transaction with the Great Lakes Central Railroad. We'll have our piece of property in Clare, and they'll have their piece of property in the city of Cadillac. Okay, well, whoa, what does that mean then for the pathway? Because the land included the pathway portion. Okay, go ahead. Again, that's that building in the distance that we're talking about that's fairly valuable to the railroad, obviously the tracks and so forth. Okay. Subsequent to that, we received the city received an email from Deborah Brown. She's the manager of freight services from MDOT. This was to Marcus, and essentially,
Jump in really quick.
Go ahead.
The email that Jerry is about to mention came subsequent to a telephone conversation by Deborah Brown that advised what Jerry mentioned on the previous slide, that there's a conversation going on with Claire, not entirely sure what this all means yet, we'll get back to you, and then her getting back to me is the subsequent email.
Right. And per her email, she also looked to see if there was any sort of formal follow-up lease or easement agreement. She said MDOT's unable to find it. However, she goes on to say, that being said, we believe the attached document, that's that earlier packet of 1984, meets MDOT's requirements pursuant to what you've done relative to building a pathway there. And before we do anything with this property, we would have to offer it to you according to state law. Okay. I'm not going to read the state law, but basically that's the law that she was referencing, indicating. I did highlight the bottom portion there. Basically, that says if we own any leasehold improvements on property that's adjacent to the real property that they own, that we have so-called first right of refusal. Go ahead. Okay, and she, Ms. Brown says, give us time to sort this out. July 9th of 2011 through May 7th, 2013, no action on the part of MDOT in terms of this particular issue. Go ahead. Later, or subsequent to that, okay, what's going on here? There was a meeting on May 7th, 2013 with Ms. Brown. We wanted to discuss the city concerns, the status of any action, and what can we do. And there was a follow-up email from Ms. Brown thanking the city for the meeting, states she will forward a copy of the MDOT right-of-way entry for the park property. In other words, we're going to continue looking, and she says, let's look forward to continuing our discussions. Okay. Hope I'm not belaboring you with this, but just want to bring you up to date. As a follow-up to that, we had Jim Ray, who is our GIS consultant. We had him forward an aerial of the parkland showing the particular pieces of property. Evidently, Ms. Brown didn't have one, so we sent one on. No further contact, at least for a while, from Ms. Brown. The city did, on April 8th, 2014 of this year, we actually met with representatives of Great Lakes Central, Mr. Bagwell, the president, CEO, and Mr. Robinson, a VP, a chief engineer from the railroad, and basically just to have discussion as to what's their understanding. They reiterated their understanding of what the Michigan Department of Natural Resources wanted and what they were potentially going to offer. Mr. Bagwell said this has really been an on and off again matter with MDOT. It's been going on for years and years, so okay. And then most recently, April 25th, 2014, Rod Adams, no relationship to me, he's with the right-of-way division and handles right-of-way and permitting and so forth. And he was in town, not just for this, but he had some other matters that he needed to take care of with Bruce. Bruce, I think, is back there, related to the railroad and so forth. But we did have some discussion on this, and he indicated, yeah, we really do need a lease or an easement should be executed covering the park property. And he went on to say, what you really need to do maybe, although we have nothing in writing from him, is you need to identify the area desired. And ultimately, you'll probably have to have it appraised, and there will be an annual lease or an easement that will need to be executed with, of course, you'll have to bear those costs. And again, he reiterated, but I don't see a problem with the city obtaining some form of agreement. We'll work it out. Okay, I'm almost done here. And then last month, it was we weren't part of these, but we have had some discussions with MDOT, both locally and in Lansing, and there were some internal discussions by MDOT to gain a better understanding of this matter and try to figure out what are we going to do. Well, go ahead. Just recently, I thought I'm going to the top. And so I contacted Tim Hoffner. He's the director of the Michigan Office of Rail. It's as high as I can go, other than the governor. And extremely nice gentleman. In fact, I found this picture on the internet, so I stuck it up there on the side there. But he indicated to me, he says, Jerry, MDOT continues to sort the situation out. These are his exact words. We have no interest in divesting ourselves of this property. In other words, we don't want to give it to the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. It's too important for long-term rail use, and state control is very important. He said that MDOT will work things out with the city, and we'll be in contact with the city. And the next one, please. Almost done here. I want to read you this one. The next day, we got a follow-up from Deborah Brown, who falls underneath in terms of position, falls underneath of Mr. Hoffner. And her email was, and again, I'm going to quote it verbatim. I understand you had a good conversation with Tim Hoffner concerning the MDOT-owned railroad property in which a portion of the city of Cadillac's lakefront path lies. I echo his commitment that MDOT intends to work closely with the city to ensure that its interest in the pathway is protected going forward. I'd like to talk specifics with you to better understand the city's goal in this matter and see how we can work together to reach the best solution for both parties. We can then get the appropriate people involved to make something happen. I'll be out of the office on Friday, but we'll call on Monday, et cetera, et cetera. Look forward to working with you, Deb. Okay. And that's where it's at right now. So we will be in discussions, continuing discussions with MDOT, but my belief, based on what we've our discussions so far, is this will get worked out. It's going to take a little time.
And it would likely be under some form of easement agreement.
Right. Okay. Any questions? That's really all I know.
What a boondoggle.
It's kind of interesting. Things happen, though,
Yeah,
it's
somebody thinks the other has done something,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it just never gets filed.
Thank you for putting
I never
that.
knew that wasn't city property along the shoreline there.
Thank you for doing that research and putting that together.
Yep.
So do we still have, it's been a long time, and hopefully I still believe this is something that council should have and should in the future be knowledgeable of. But is there still on the table, there was mention about the rights of us purchasing that property or to have discussions? Number one, and if so, that I do believe council should be part of that with the property. And it sounds like you're in agreement that an easement is important, that we shouldn't bank on that just being parkland, and that we really need to get something set up with the MDOT.
I don't believe that MDOT wants to sell the property, but they are willing to enter into a modern easement agreement that would protect the parkland, protect the Keith McCullough walkway. And the reason why I say that is because they indicated that it's important that they maintain state control over the rails. The Great Lakes Railroad Company is the current company that's under an operational agreement with MDOT to run their business on those rails, but that could change sometime, anytime, I suppose. And I believe, and again, I'm speculating, but it's, from what I gather as well, it's my understanding that MDOT wants to continue to maintain all control, but yet would essentially give us an easement agreement that would protect the McCullough walkway, the trail, the park right-of-way, as you've been referring to it. And as Jerry had mentioned before, they're going to develop that tool, that mechanism, and then share it with us, not unlike how when we have various other resolutions or agreements through the state, it's just a standard form that we're working off of, and that's what we're waiting for, basically.
I know that a month ago when we had this conversation, kind of your thought was that we were protected because of being parkland, but as this becomes apparent, we probably wouldn't have needed an easement if it was parkland at all. And it sounds like we really need to get something in place. And looking again, I hope our council's involved in this. I think that it's very apparent by our ordinance and charter that it is something that we need to be involved with. That's all I got.
Jerry, did you say that she was going to call you back?
Yes.
Has she called you back yet?
No, not yet.
Okay. You'll keep us abreast of that so that we know, council, because it is a concern. Pardon? Yeah, I know, I'm
So paranoid.
looking back this way. Okay. Because, I'd like to keep it moving so that it doesn't sit.
So right now, the ball is in their court, in the state's court.
Oh, I realize that, but I mean, it's important for us to know what's going on, so we don't get surprised. A call from Lansing or anywhere else, that's part of that. I want to make sure it's moving still.
Okay, thank you very much for that follow-up on that concern.
Thank you, it was very interesting.
Yes.
I didn't know that MDOT owned that building either. I thought the railroad did, but they lease it, that makes sense.
Yep. Okay. So that was it for your report?
Yes.
Done? Okay. The next thing we have on the agenda is adoption of ordinances and resolutions.
Oh, and there's the picture. Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. This item is with respect to a license to encroach, on a public right-of-way. There has been a recent acquisition of a building located in the downtown, 209 North Mitchell Street. That's the location of where the Shea Bella Salon and Medical Spa is located on the main floor. A Cadillac area resident acquired the building and is in the process of making or wanting to make renovations to the second floor for residential purposes. As a part of the renovations, it does require an entryway into the public right-of-way, which would encroach on the public right-of-way in between his building and the building to the north. That's where the current brick walkway is. If you could see the pavers that leads to the mid-block crosswalk across the street to the east of where Herman's is located, just for a point of reference. The Cadillac Downtown Development Authority reviewed the request as a part of their last meeting and is supportive of the encroachment, which is going to be an exterior door and landing with a couple of stairs. The request this evening would be to essentially consider the approval of a resolution that would grant a revocable license that would allow the encroachment. The resolution does provide that all costs associated with the project and required liability insurance are borne by the applicants. Jerry, are there any other pictures that you wanted to show of the?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've got a few.
Okay, please. Yep.
Okay, pretty well covered it, Marcus. Go ahead, if you would. The applicant initially was Lee Richards. Lee is the buyer, but the applicant is Sake Holdings, LLC. As Marcus mentioned, they own the Shea Bella Salon. The address is 209 North Mitchell Street, and to my understanding, Mr. Richards has an option to buy, and part of that option involves whether or not he's able to get this license to encroach. Go ahead. Real quickly here, the big red star, that's where you're sitting right now. Okay, just to kind of tell you where things are at. The little round, I guess I'll call it orange or whatever, that's the Shea Bella. And then you'll see the green strip. That's the pedestrian passageway that we're talking about. It runs between Elk Avenue and Mitchell Street. It's a bricked, landscaped pathway that allows people that, let's say, are parking in the lots to the rear to walk through instead of having to go around. Okay. As Marcus mentioned, the request and some project information This is a two-story structure on the main floor. The ground floor is the commercial area, the salon. And Mr. Richards wants to take the upper story, the second floor, put it into or develop a market rate apartment, very nice apartment. And one of the things he needs or would like is to have a private entry access to that second floor apartment, which doesn't currently exist. Basically, you have to go through the first floor, then up the stairs. And so there's a need for a private entry. The north facade or the north side of the building makes the most sense. We're not talking about putting a staircase going up to the second floor outside. The staircase is already in there. It's internal. This is just a first floor door with a little landing and porch. And I'll show you a plan in a second, but the project will be designed consistent with the character of the public walkway. The landing and stairs, they'll actually continue to be about 5.5 feet away from the actual pathway. There'll be a connecting sidewalk. So if you're a pedestrian walking along the pathway, you're not going to run into or bump, so to speak, the landing, the porch, and the stairs. And again, the walkway will be constructed of brick pavers, similar to what's there with the pathway now. Go ahead. As Marcus mentioned, the Cadillac DDA, they did review the request for the exterior doorway and the associated features, and they're supportive of the encroachment. Staff has reviewed. We don't have any objections to the proposed project either. Okay. Any costs associated with the activity, with the construction and so forth, will be borne by the applicant. The way the agreement that you have in front of you is written, it's not transferable other than from the current owner to Mr. Richards. Beyond that, it would take City Council approval to transfer it any further. This project is consistent with other requests that have been granted by the city to encroach in the public right-of-way. You've done them for several industries. You've done them for Mercy Hospital, for example. So this is not something that's unique. Go ahead. Probably should have mentioned too, if we as a city, for whatever reason, need to have it removed, we have the right to tell the property owner or to the Mr. Richard, whoever happens to be the owner of the building, to remove it. Has to be removed at your cost and their cost, I should say, with the site restored accordingly. Go ahead. Oh, that's right. I've got a few shots. Let's go back. Well, can you go back real quickly? This is, if you're entering it from, you're on the west, looking east, heading towards Mitchell. It's kind of the character of the pathway right now. I took a few shots today. Go ahead. Thanks, Andy. We're getting closer to Mitchell Street. I don't know if you can see the stake right.
Oh, yeah.
Right in this area here. That's where the porch and the steps would be. Doesn't require essentially removing virtually anything other than some ground landscaping. I think there's one more of those. Go ahead. Yeah, just a little closer. This is where the porch would come out and the steps. The steps, instead of connecting right to the pathway, they will go to the west. And again, you'll see this in a second, so that for example, people walking up and down the passageway won't be inclined, hey, let's sit on the steps for a while. But go ahead. Just a plan version, and kind of see this a little better. Again, there's the light pole. That stake you saw was right in this area. The landing and the steps will come this way with a brick paver pathway connecting to the pedestrian passageway. And the DDA, in terms of why were they supportive of something like this, one of their goals is to promote particularly market rate additional residential development in the downtown. They didn't feel as though this would have any sort of significant negative impact on the pathway, and very importantly, it would encourage the rehab, the redevelopment of a commercial structure in the downtown, which is really what we want to see. We want to see older buildings being continually upgraded, updated, and it would add, again, more population to the downtown. I think that's the last one. That's it.
Jerry, did you want to just mention maintenance really briefly? Maintenance?
Yes. He or the owner will be responsible for maintaining all of, not necessarily the entire pathway, but the porch, the steps, and so forth, the landing. He'll be responsible, and he's aware of that. He's also aware of the fact that from a standpoint of snow removal along your favorite subject here, along the pathway.
No, there is no snow.
There is no snow. Yeah, he fully understands that, we may not be the first ones. We may not be, at 6 o'clock in the morning getting there to shovel that pathway. So his residents or someone else may have to do it for him until we get around doing it. So he's aware of all that. I think most of you know Lee. He's the CEO of Avon Automotive.
So that tree that was in there, you don't have to...
No, we don't have to take it down. Nope.
Cool.
What you have in front of you is, it's called a license, isn't it, Mike, too? I call it a license to encroach.
Revocable license.
Okay, and basically outlines the terms and conditions of the agreement. It has a legal description. The legal description allows for a few inches of play around this, just to consider field conditions and so forth, but I think everything is ordered. It's similar to the ones you've approved in the past.
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution for a license to encroach on a public right-of-way.
Support?
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Malama?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Coleman?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Filkins?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, also in our packets this evening, we have, just for your reading pleasure, the minutes of the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, which was held on March 20th, the minutes of the Wexford County Airport Authority, which was held on May 15th, and the minutes of the Downtown Development Authority, which was held on April 30th. And at this time, we will again open the floor for public comment. If you would please limit your time to 3 minutes, that would be appreciated.
Mayor Filkins and City Council, I think all of you know me. I'm Mike Solomon. I'm Wexford County Drain Commissioner, and I'd like to update you on lake levels and a few other matters of mutual concerns for the city and county. You all know that the lake level has been fairly high this spring. It peaked at 1291.16, which is a little over a foot higher than the legal lake level, and right now it's about 5 inches above that. And I know you've had at least one individual before you talking about lake levels. So why is it so high? I think Sherry just mentioned our snowfall from last year. We'd all like to forget it, but on top of that, we had 6.6 inches of rain in the month of April. So as the snow was going, we received about 2.5 times our normal rain. The dam has been wide open since October of 2013, remained wide open throughout the winter. Our actual lake levels in August and September were very low, and frankly, I got more complaints about low lake levels than I have about high lake levels this spring. But why are we having this? And I think there's a couple things I want to draw to your attention, and one is the amount of construction around both lakes. There used to be the little cottages, 20 by 20, they're old fishing cottages and what have you. They've been replaced by 2,000 to 3,000 square foot and sometimes larger homes with 3-car garages, a lot of driveways and patios and other things that create impervious surfaces and cause the water to run off much faster. We've had all the development on Holly Road. We've had Chestnut extended in the city, and then Lake Mitchell is probably even a greater extent of impervious surfaces being applied. We've got 4,000 acres of lake between the two, and probably 10,000 acres of wetlands that all go down a 20-foot wide clam river through 2 gates in the dam. I've worked with Jack Lynn, who is a retired statistician, and we've analyzed the approximately 40 years of data, and you really start to see some trends. And, Jack has worked out the statistics, and I have copies, but one interesting observation, from 1980 to 1994, about a 15-year period, there was only 3 end-of-month readings that were above 1290.5, so 6 inches above the spring level. The last almost 15 years, there's been 11, so it's almost 4 times as many. And the reasons I presented before is what I think is the result. And frankly, I don't think there's a lot that we can do. The 2 gates on the dam are about 20 feet wide. The river isn't much wider. And frankly, when we get to the levels that we were at this year, the water on Mitchell Street, Business 131, was up on the I-beams of the bridge. So you're constricted there. So without a lot of work on the river, there's probably a limited amount of things that can be done. So I think you can expect higher water levels and more frequent flooding. So, what are the management considerations of that? And my recommendation to the city is to look at a continuing budget for shoreline erosion. Fortunately, the city has a lot of property that we all use on Lake Cadillac. Unfortunately, a lot of it's not very well protected. And the city, as the agreement or commendation to MSU, talked about the soft shoreline that was installed a few years ago. And I think the low impact areas of the lake, such as where that one is installed, are very suitable for that type of less than hard erosion control. And other areas, such as the very east end of the lake, where there's much higher erosion due to the wind. You've got about 3 miles of fetch there, need harder erosion, such as rock riprap over geotextile material. And I know the city's been kind of chinking away at different areas, and we probably need to look at that. It was kind of interesting as I listened to the update on the MDOT park property. Your assessment will find a lot less property than there was in 1984. You're really starting to see the erosion that's occurring there, and part of it actually has undermined that sidewalk a little ways. And I'm sure when the sidewalk was constructed, it was probably 10 or 15 feet away from the lake. So those are a couple things to look at. 2 other items. Most of you know that we've done a significant amount of work on the dam, and that work has been completed. Unfortunately, when we replaced the seals on the dam, we found extensive corrosion on the 2 gates. As a part of the engineering assessment that we have done on a triennial basis, we're going to have an evaluation of whether the gates can continue to handle holding the water back. But there's noticeable erosion and corrosion of the metal, and they're about 40 years old, so they may be nearing their life expectancy. The other item, and on a much more positive note, is we begin the E. coli sampling for 3 areas on Lake Cadillac: Kenwood Beach, City Park, and the city dock out in front. There's some swimming that occurs at all 3 of those locations, and that's been a really good partnership between the Drain Commissioner and the city of Cadillac, working with Amy Vale to do the evaluations on E. coli. And that grant, I think this is the 8th year that we've had that grant, and it is over this year, and there's question of whether that funding will be available more. I know the city would like to continue it, and I will certainly make application for grant funding, but we'll see how that goes. And then the final thing I want to do is I want to thank city staff. During high water conditions, we have a lot of cooperation and coordination, and it starts with Marcus, Bruce DeWitt, has been very involved, Jeff Dietland, and then especially Al Dumont. They've all been really great to work with, and I appreciate that and want their leaders to know it. So thank you very much.
That was interesting.
I'm Harry Elkman Boone and council members. And again, I got no dog in this race. I don't know where you live, any of yous. I don't have coffee with any of yous. I don't go to concerts with you. I don't do anything. But anyhow, at the last meeting, there was a 5-page amendment came up. I didn't say anything, but Mr. Stevens took a shot at Marcus, and that got my notice. But I wanted to see what the Cadillac News would have in the paper if they had a bias on it. A few years ago, Mr. Stevens voted for an 18-page amendment, and it wasn't in the paper. And for my friend Mike, I'm just waiting for him to invite me out for coffee. I'll even come to Grand Rapids. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Blake Meyering, live at 10925 East 755. Some of you may know I'm a paid on call here at the City of Cadillac for the fire department. I was an eligible candidate for 2 of the positions that opened up in the fall of 2013. I'm here tonight to make the council aware that I've had a settlement offer into the city since March 25th. If my math's right, that's 5 or 6 council meetings that have happened, and I've yet to have a reply from the city, the civil service, their attorney, or council. We know there's been discussions about it in closed session because of agendas. We just haven't had the courtesy of a reply. If the city council is serious about resolving this case fairly to all involved while saving the citizens of Cadillac enormous attorney bills, they'll do this the right way and look at the settlement offer and accept it. This not only will be the right thing to do, but will uphold the integrity and the goal of Public Act 78. If the council has yet to see my settlement offer, you might want to ask for a copy from the attorney. If the council has any questions, please feel free to ask me or my legal counsel, and we will get back to you promptly. We don't want the city to spend more needless attorney fees on a matter that is so easy to settle. We'd really like to resolve this as soon as possible, and I'd like to thank you for your time. Any questions? Thank you.
My name's Tom Taylor. I'm a citizen of Cadillac, longtime citizens, and also with Coldwell Banker Schmidt Realtors in Cadillac. I want to thank Mike Solomon tonight because he went beyond the 3 minutes, so I figure I can go beyond the 3 minutes now too, so I'll try not to do that. First of all, I want to follow up on something that Doug Mellema said as far as the possible new city building inspector. I can tell you from firsthand experience as a realtor, when I would have clients wanting to move commercially into the city of Cadillac, it would be extremely difficult for us to get approval of the building department because there was a conflict, in my opinion, because a member of the county building department was a resident of Herring Township. And Herring Township is always trying to steal our business, plain and simple. So I think that's a step in the right direction. I just hope that the city feels that you can afford it and I hope that you can work it out so that it does. So, and you know, that is my first-hand experience. I'm not here to hearsay from anybody else, but I can tell you it happened to me, and more than one time. It was extremely difficult to get businesses in town here, and I felt it was a conflict of interest. I think I might have talked to Marcus about it in the past, and so I think that's a step in the right direction, and I hope you consider it very strongly. I did want to thank you for approval of Lee Richards' request for the building downtown. One of the things I can envision happening in the city of Cadillac, as well as many other cities around the United States, is more and more cities are going to upstairs lofts in their commercial structures. And there's no reason that Cadillac can't go along with that. And you're going to need to do things like that, granting licenses and irrevocable licenses and easements and stuff like that for it to continue into the future. Especially if we're concerned about balancing the budget and getting some more tax revenue for the city. I think that's an ideal place that that can happen. And coupled with that, I will suggest to you to form a council or a committee of some kind that will investigate turning the city into a downtown historic district. As you know, we do have a residential historic district in the area. By establishing a downtown historic district, I think there's more funding available, more grants available, more improvements are available, and I think it's a bigger draw for the community and a bigger draw for the tax base. There is funding available through grants that will not cost the city anything to establish that kind of action. So I would hope that maybe you would consider doing that. And I do want to say congratulations formally to Carla and to the City Council. I feel you guys are doing a good job. I hope we can continue to work together. One thing I would hope we could do sometime soon is try to get away from all these attorney's fees that we've got accumulating. I know there's outstanding issues there, but we were trying to put the past behind us. We want to mend wounds, we want to work together, and we want to move forward. First thing I hear or see when people move to town is there's so much contest in the city of Cadillac as far as people not getting along, not working together. It starts with the city council. You guys need to get on the same bandwagon. So that's all I'll say tonight. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? If not, we'll at this time close public comment. And move into the good of the order for this evening. Councilmember Spillman.
I just have one thing, and really the Drain Commissioner talked about it. You know, I've noticed a lot of the shoreline erosion this spring with the high water level, and trying to save the roads and saving the Keith McKillop walkway by placing riprap around the shoreline. And you know, and Mike and I frankly had talked a little bit about this a week or so ago. And that's when he told me, you know, you really need to be prepared because it's probably not going to go away and it's going to get higher. And I hadn't thought about how much shoreline we've actually lost next to the Clam River Greenway, or excuse me, the Keith McKillop walkway. And I think we probably need to put some type of a committee together to do some long-term planning for sustainability for our shoreline. You know, in so many places, at the park, along the roads, and everywhere. It's a wonderful asset we have, but, you know, there's a lot of changes in weather patterns these days, and if we can plan for them, we're going to be further ahead in the long run.
Thank you. Councilmember Shippers.
I think that's a great idea. Proactive. Actually, it's already too late to be proactive, isn't it?
Yeah.
The other thing that I would like to mention is to please wear your bike helmet About a week and a half ago, my husband took a spill on his bike and laid open his melon pretty badly. He was wearing a helmet, fortunately, because had he not been wearing a helmet, the outcome would have been a lot worse than a trip in an ambulance to the emergency room. So please wear your helmets. I have some friends with a whole bunch of kids, and they were riding around the lake all together, and they were stopped by a Cadillac City police officer who gave them each certificates for ice cream because they were all wearing their helmets. I love that our officers are doing that still. So thanks for that. And wear your helmets. Protect your melon, for heaven's sake.
Good, thank you. Mr. Stevens.
First, triggering what Mr. Taylor mentioned about the historic district, I did have a note, maybe in April, we had all received a memo from the Historic District Committee and kind of addressing us, wanting to get us into an issue. And I was thinking maybe that could be a future item or something of their request. It looked like it kind of dealt with the downtown one specific building. So I wanted to mention that. Also, just to give, unfortunately, we've had to do this a lot lately, but to just say a word on, the community lost Terry Toby Beck this past week that served on the county commission, and wanted to recognize and just give to the family that we're all thinking of him, and or the family as well. And he did serve on the county commission, and then he also helped bring a few things that we've functioned a little differently with at the city. So just wanted to say we're thinking of his family and all his friends. And then just wanted to mention, I had an opportunity coincidentally a couple weeks ago, and this again ties in with the Police Officers Association of Michigan had an opportunity to go to a part of their conference, and for a few hours. It was that their award ceremony, the Attorney General was the speaker, and they were recognizing the Officers of the Year. And it made me, for a moment, step back and say how much to appreciate our public safety. What I noticed of the 4 that received the Officers of the Year, they gave the incident that they were nominated with, the situation that came up. And both of them, in all those cases, there were 2 things that came out. Number one, afterwards, every one of them recognized very humbly that they were basically receiving that honor on behalf of the rest of the law enforcement that do heroic things every day and aren't recognized. I thought that was interesting. The second thing was how in every situation they had to, within seconds, if they even were allowed seconds, they had to make a decision, assess the situation, know every law, they had to know every policy. They had to see how it was going to impact the victims, the suspects, other police officers, etc. And I was thinking to myself, I would have a terrible time, like if that was our council meetings, and we just were given a topic and we had to vote like that. We had to take everything in the mind and in 3 seconds make a decision. And how we probably don't recognize sometimes public safety, the decision-making they have to do, and how quick. And it also, by the way, also takes place during the National Police Month, is May. So I thought of that. In light of the point brought up about legal fees, and it addressed the fact that this made me realize we right now have about 9 or 10 different employee-related things. I personally, after reviewing our charter and ordinance, I don't really think, and it's not a blame of council, we just haven't been given that information that we are appropriately dealing with these of who is approving them. And I'm asking council to first find out the answer, who's approved these scenarios, and then secondly, who's supposed to by our charter, and to really review that. I just really find it specifically, we had a case today brought forward where I think the perception is that council has made these decisions, and I want to, on the record, make that statement that I do not believe that we have made those decisions. There is going to be legal fees involved and such. I do not feel that our council has appropriately been given the situations to decide, and I just want to make sure on the record that I feel, given the public safety and what they sacrifice to our community, that it just makes sense that we should honor them back by, if we are going to choose to do this, that we make sure we're doing it the appropriate way and without hesitation follow the process. Thank you.
Mr. Melman?
Wanted to bring up a couple things. Our issues and solutions over coffee will be at Big Boys, right, Mr. Adams?
So far,
Okay, and that'll be June 11th,
second Wednesday.
second Wednesday. Am I correct on the 11th? Yes. All right. The other thing is, that leads me into what Mr. Taylor said, and I do appreciate your comments on the building inspector's position. This is something that came to my attention and I've been harping on for the last 2 years, and I know that needs to be addressed. Sometimes the issues and solutions, when you put yourself out there, you hear all sorts of things that can be corrected and should be corrected. So thank you for your comment. The other thing is sometimes I've been critical of the newspaper, and I know Mr. Beck has been critical of the newspaper. So I want to give the newspaper a compliment for the nice article about Terry Beck and his life. That was a real thumbs up, because he did believe in transparency, and that was his rule. And I didn't know him as a young man, but I guess he was quite a rascal. He broke just about every rule that there was available, and was given ultimatums by the judge and everything else. And when he turned his life around, then he said rules apply to everyone, no matter who you are. And I do appreciate the article that you presented in the paper. So please pass that on. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Patrick?
No comments this evening.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to share a very nice thank you that the city received from Joe Spry, Superintendent of Schools. She said she wanted to personally send this thank you our way to share her appreciation for the support given by members of the city team. On Thursday, May 22nd, I asked for assistance to have the road area in front of the Memorial Stadium cleaned by the street sweeper in preparation of graduation. The area was still soiled and sandy from the winter snow season, and I wanted it to look great for Friday's graduation event. True to form, your team came to the rescue and were already in the area preparing for weekend events, and did swing through and added that area to their list of to-do for the day. Needless to say, the front entrance of the stadium and the high school parking lot were cleaned for Friday's graduation. I very much appreciate the collaboration and support of your team. Thanks again, and I wanted you to know they went above and beyond. P.S. I first contacted Marcus and he got the ball rolling. So I just wanted to share that with the people from the city. And the other thing that I wanted to share was, I don't know how many of you made it down to the Memorial Day Parade, but it was pretty darn awesome this year. The thought that went into the parade and the people that showed up to let us know how much they care was pretty amazing. There was a good deal of effort on the part of many. Two people specifically that I want to mention is Steve Birdwell, who planned the memorial service over at the stadium. Very thoughtful. And Richie Harris for putting together the parade staging. And then finally, I just wanted to mention, and I'm glad the Meyerings are sitting here this evening, the horse-drawn hearse was something that was so sombering and so meaningful that when it went by down on Lake Street, it just gave me chills. But it really, really added something to the Memorial Day this year. So thank you. All right, is there anything else? Okay. Motion to adjourn? I'll just adjourn it.
Just adjourn.